When I was about 11 years old, I used to read manga a lot. Every lunchtime at school, I'd head over to the library, hope the next book was there and not borrowed out, and then sit in the corner and read silently. One day I stumbled upon this manga, Tagami Bachi. I have no idea why, but my little tween brain latched onto this manga. I was obsessed with the art style, the atmosphere, and the dystopian story I hadn't really seen before. If you haven't read it before, then I highly recommend you give it a read. Anyway, I don't know if it was the kind of sandy, deserty vibe from the manga, but something inside me clicked. And so, at the age of 11, I drew my first ever comic, Kanna. It was a train wreck because I never actually planned the story out before I started drawing it. The basic story was that Kanna was a super special chosen one who went on an adventure with her best friend and a random wizard while being chased by lab experiments. Flipping through this thing makes it clear that my art skills were... but that doesn't matter now because I'm an adult and it's been more than 10 years, so I figured why not try to redesign my oldest OCs. But before we dive right into the redesigns, I think it's important that we do a dramatic reading of this comic. Look, if I had to suffer making this video, then so do you. Anyway, here's my first ever comic, Kanna.
Amaz'Dae, Lykos, I have bread! How are you feeling, Amaz'Dae?
I'm okay.
Lykos, what happened?
It's nothing, okay?
Hi, Lykos.
Hey, Amaz'Dae. How you feeling?
You're right.
Oh, it's nothing.
You look bad as an eye like that.
Thanks, Amaz'Dae.
Amaz'Dae? Amaz'Dae?
Kanna, hurry!
Oh my god.
A nightmare! Loaded! Fire!
Who are you?
Kanna, I bow at your greatness. I am Kron, wizard from the east.
What are you talking about, Kron? I'm no greater than Lykos.
Here.
Hey!
Kanna, what's that?
I don't know where it came from. I've always just had it. What was that thing?
Thing is called a nightmare. They appear when a Helester dies. You know, ridding the body of all the illness and injury of the past Helester.
Amaz'Dae? Wake up, Amaz'Dae. Wake up, wake up. What are these?
I think these are Amaz'Dae's memories.
Ow, I cut my finger. Amaz'Dae fixed Mummy's finger.
Step right up, folks. You can heal any wound. Daddy, I cough cough. And she's fucking dead. I'm afraid you can't use your child as a moneymaker anymore, bitch. Her health is extremely low.
Hi, I'm Kanna. What's your name?
I'm Amaz'Dae.
How about you come out with me?
I can't read what that says because of the way I taped it. Oh no, she's sick and she only has a few years left.
So what are your parents like?
I can't remember.
Amaz'Dae, you healed me.
That's what family does.
Miss Kanna, we must leave for the capital now.
The capital? Why the capital?
I'll explain on the way there. Now pack your bags. Kanna, wait. I'm coming too. So obviously there's a lot of changes that I made to this character. One of them is that I changed their name from Kanta to Kanna. Their new name is Kanna now. I think mostly because it reminds me of Arcana, which is like magic, and their whole thing is like magic, so it makes sense. Another thing that I changed is that I didn't give them a gender. They're genderless, kind of non-binary. I think the reason I did that, one, lore-wise, they're an Asma, which is a child of a goddess and a human, so them having a gender wouldn't really make sense. And two, most importantly, all of my characters when I first did this were straight, white, cisgendered peoples. I had absolutely no diversity, and now as an adult and knowing more about art and storytelling, I think it's important to have a character that is diverse in the lineup. It also allows us to play with some fun story ideas about gender identity, which I think could be really interesting. Onto their actual character now. I've definitely changed up their look. The drawing I have in the top left is the old designs of the characters that I made in 2022. So I'm basically taking the outfit, but I'm changing in the hairstyle sometimes, but I'm changing the skin tone. I wanted Kanna to be more sun-kissed because they work in the sun a lot in the desert kingdom, so it would make sense for them to have a deeper skin tone and complexion. I also just kind of lightened the colors and livened them up because it looks like I put a white haze over all of the characters for some reason. I have no idea. But on to Kanna now, their story. Their story is still, it's similar to how it used to be, but it's different in a lot of big ways. I'm still developing their story as we're doing this, but the general gist is that Kanna is the child of the goddess of light and one of her most loyalist followers. Essentially, Kanna was supposed to be a human version of this goddess to walk upon the earth and basically do her bidding. Now, Kanna's father knew that a child that was half goddess, especially the goddess of light, who was like a big deal in this universe, would attract the attention of a lot of unsavory people who want to use the goddess's powers for their own gain. He tried to hide Kanna throughout the whole childhood, but unfortunately they were still found. A group of cultists who worship the opposite god of Kanna found the pair and, well, attacked them. Their plan was to take Kanna in and basically raise them as their own goddess child to basically, evil stuff, but unfortunately, fortunately for Kanna, their dad sacrificed himself in order to save Kanna. One of the last things that Kanna ever heard their father say to them was, "Run. Never stop running until I find you again." And that's exactly what Kanna did. Even though they were gravely injured, they kept running and running and running through the snow and the cold. They were in fear, their eye, pain, and bleeding down their face. Eventually, they made their way to the large bustling city where everyone ignored a small child in agony. They were still being chased by the cultists, but as they stumbled down an alleyway, they saw something which changed their life. A young boy was outside of the family home just throwing away some rubbish when he came upon Kanna in the street, scared, bloody, in pain. He decided to take Kanna in to see his adopted parents, who happened to be healers and clerics. They were a dwarven couple named Beatrix and Magical Soul. They had already adopted a child named Lykos, who was the child from the alley. And after noticing not only Kanna's powers, but the individuals who were after them, they decided to take Kanna in as one of their own. Their family was always one of outsiders, no one who really fit into society, and this child who clearly needed someone right now, of course they were going to take in. And so they packed up their things and they left for the desert kingdom in order to protect Kanna, and also they just wanted to move somewhere sunny. Kanna was then continuing to be raised in the desert kingdom with their two adopted parents and their new adopted brother. They didn't know anything about their powers or who their mother was. All they knew was that their dad was most likely gone, and they never see them again. That is until one day something happens which awakens the powers inside of Kanna. And the story progresses from there, but I'm not quite sure of how it kind of unfolds, but yeah, essentially that's it. The story still has a lot of elements from the original tale, and it's kind of what I was aiming for when I wrote it as a young kid. But now that I'm more, experienced with storytelling, I like to think that the story is more coherent and actually sets up plot points and reasons instead of just stuff randomly happening. They also have a personality now, which they clearly lacked in the beginning. Their personality when I first wrote them was just generic female heroine, but obviously now that they're different, I had to switch it up. Instead of literally having no personality, they have one now, which is good for a main character. I wanted them to be a foil to Lykos, so I made it so that they are hot-headed and spontaneous, and they don't really think about their actions before they do it. They just kind of do it. They jump into the face of danger without really thinking much about it, which is the foil to Lykos, who was very methodical and logical. Also hot-headed because the whole sun motif, haha, you get it. So currently in the background, I'm just drawing up a bunch of different outfits for them that they'll probably wear along their journey. Instead of just having like a generic fantasy journey, I want it to be very similar to like a D&D kind of campaign journey, like going through different kingdoms and experiencing different cultures. And so I took a lot of inspiration from that in order to kind of make the vibe of this. I really struggled with the colors for some of these, like as you can probably see in the speed paint, but oh my gosh, when I got it, I finally got it. I was so happy, but it took a lot of work. For any of you wondering, yes, this series is going to be very D&D vibes because I am totally not obsessed with the game. If I were to have Kanna as a playable D&D character, I would set them as a chaotic good Asima fighter, because that's kind of, I base their character off that. And that's pretty much all for Kanna. So let's move on to another one of the main characters.
One quick question, and it's actually homophobic if you don't let me do this, but well, it's clearly gay.
Up next we have Lucas, who is no longer Lucas in the story, and I have renamed him to Lykos. You're gonna notice a pattern, a trend of me renaming the characters because I have no idea why, but little baby me decided to name them all the most generic Australian names. I'm surprised there's no like Lachlan in there. This is a fantasy world. Why am I naming him Lucas? Anyway, rant over. I did a lot to change him. He has a personality. He has a purpose. He is more than just a werewolf who is just the boy counterpart to Kanna. I've given him a personality which is just a generic smart boy, logical, cold, blunt, but I think it really suits him because in the original story, he was just edgy boy with no real emotions or thoughts or any kind of flavor to him. Now he has, I like to think, a bit of flavor. I've changed up his design a lot, so it actually reflects not only where he is, what he does, but also who he is and like his past and his whole personality. He is no longer in just a generic t-shirt and pants combination because what? Anyway, I changed his outfit to more reflect his role right now. He lives in the desert, but he is a scholar, so he has more of a fancy kind of desert attire. Although his clothes are baggy, they are made of good material and they're not like ripped or anything. I also wanted to play more into his personality and his kind of backstory with his appearance as well. So the whole story with Lykos that I didn't get to explain in the original comic because I hadn't gone up to that yet, and I also didn't think of it until I started actually drawing the panels, was that Lykos was basically, he is a twin of another character who we'll meet maybe later on. Now in the original story, Lykos actually didn't know he was a werewolf, so that's why he never really transformed, and it also was that he had like a deformity, so he couldn't turn into a wolf. That's how he got captured. It wasn't super clear. Nothing was super clear back then. But again, now I'm putting more depth and understanding into his story. I've changed it a lot and I've kind of mixed it about a bit. Now that I actually have like a clear system and world in my head, it makes sense for certain things to happen. So I've changed a few things to kind of fit the new narrative of werewolves being kind of seen as the indigenous peoples, but also seen as like a negative, less than humanoid thing. And because of this, I've actually taken a lot of inspiration from historical events that happened to the indigenous people of Australia, my people. Essentially, in Lykos' story, a group of poachers came to his community of werewolves. They murdered a bunch of them and they kidnapped some of the kids, forcefully assimilating them into this ideal that werewolfism, lycanthropism, what's the word? Basically being a lycanthrope was seen as like inhumane. It is like a savagery. So they basically forcefully assimilated them in these boarding schools to kind of be the humanoid way. And so through this forced assimilation at such a young age, Lykos kind of is ashamed of that wolfy side. We can see this because he has very short hair, he keeps his nails very trim, he likes to be seen as very prim and proper. It's because of this ideals that was put into his head at such a formative age. Now don't worry, Beatrix and Madrigal, when they adopted him from that awful adoption center, they were fully for him embracing his wolfy side. They've given him every opportunity to embrace it if he chooses to, but he hasn't really. In fact, Lykos actually asks Madrigal to make him a potion to repress his wolfy side, which, although Madrigal doesn't agree with it, he loves his son, and if that's what will make him comfortable, well, he'll do it. Lykos is a very logical character. He would prefer to be in a library with books than in nature. A part of that is he's ashamed of that side of himself, and a part of him just likes the comfort of walls. I think his new personality and whole character works so much better with Kanna because, again, he's kind of the opposite. I really wanted to go with the whole sun and moon motif because obviously Kanna is the sun and werewolfism, he's the moon. They're hot-headed and spontaneous, and Lykos is cool, calm, collected, and logical. Throughout the journey, Lykos is going to learn to love and accept every single part of him. Whether or not he goes full wolf or not, I actually don't really know yet. But essentially, he's going to be less methodical and more easygoing. Also, on the name change bit, it's not just because Lucas is a generic name. I also changed them to the name Lykos because it has moon werewolfy connotations, and I thought that was kind of clever. Also, it was so close to Lucas, I couldn't not do it. Anyway, same as Kanna, I drew up just a bunch of outfits for him based on like the different kingdoms they'll go to, and I may have had a bit of trouble, but I feel like they all kind of turned out alright. And that's it for Lykos. Let's move on to our last character.
People always come up to me and they say, how do I get where you are? How do I do what you do?
And the last character I will be drawing for today is Amaz'Dae. Amaz'Dae's character in the original story was really weird because I knew I wanted her death to be kind of this really sad child death kind of thing, but I never put any of the work to actually make the audience attached to her. She literally shows up for one scene and dies in that same scene she's introduced. Also, apologies if you can hear my cat in the background. She is right near me. So anyway, as I was saying, them dying, the scene they were introduced, probably not a good idea to get the audience attached and sad to their death. I mean, they're supposed to have a strong connection to Kanna, so them dying the moment we are introduced to them probably isn't gonna make us sad. So I decided to do something that I didn't do when I first wrote this and actually plan out the story. And in this version, Amaz'Dae is hopefully someone the audience will care about and understand why Kanna is so connected. First off, I changed their race. They are now a drow elf, mostly because we don't really have any elvy kind of guys in the family, and also because it just makes her stand out in kind of the family portrait. So the new story for Amaz'Dae is pretty much the same. Honestly, if I'm being so thorough with you, I haven't really thought of it more than just she's a background character, because really that's what she was in the beginning, and that's kind of what she's going to be now. At least for right now, Amaz'Dae's character is more of a plot device rather than an actual character. Essentially, the story is that Amaz'Dae has come down with an illness that not even Beatrix or Madrigal can cure. No one can cure it. No one really knows what it is. It's just an illness that is terminal. And so Kanna and Lykos' main motivation at the beginning of the story is just trying to find a cure for this disease. But when a strange performer comes up to Kanna and says basically he knows how to help Kanna find the cure, and it's Kanna who is the cure, what do you think they're gonna do?
I don't feel good about lying to him like that. Can I borrow your cell phone? I want to order a pizza.
And that's all I have for this video. I've actually finished the redesign of the other 3 main characters, but I'll have to say that for the next video in this series. But anyway, if you like this video, then please like and subscribe. I'll be making the next one in this series anyway, so don't miss out. Anyway, I've been Moss, you've been you, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.